So today I will be talking about the concept of power in geomancy. I'll be talking about power in geomancy. The meaning of power in geomancy has different meanings. Power can be seen as power just like we know it, either economic power or political power or what again? Economic power, political power, uh, power as power. Do you understand? Or let me just make you to quickly understand. When you are talking about economic power, you are talking about this place. You are talking about house two. When you are talking about what I said, we have economic power, we have political power. If you want to talk about political power, you should be going to house 10 to talk about political power. But when you want to talk about economic power, you should be talking to house waiting, house 2. But that is actually not what I intend to explain here. So which means that from house 1 to house 16, they are all house of war power as well. Do you understand? So it just depends on the kind of power you are making reference to or the kind of power you want to talk about. Do you understand? That is the basic thing I want to understand before we. But that is not what I want to explain in this particular video. So I want to explain power, that there are two major house of power in the geomancy chart. Remember I said earlier that all the from 1 to 16 they are house of power, but those are just the so this is just like a step forward understanding that there are two major houses of war power. There are two major, which is what house 10 and house 15. So house 15 and house 10, those are the two major house of power. The rest are also house of power. Just like when you are saying that, well, maybe somebody is a champion in medical line and somebody is a champion in legal line. You know, both of them will be champion, but somebody that is medical cannot claim champion in where legalities happens to play dominancy. And somebody who is a lawyer cannot claim seniority in where health matters. Do you understand? So we have different, but basically we know what a power is. Basically, we know what a power is. That when immediately you hear power, what comes to your mind first is political power. Do you understand? But that is the one that comes. But if you want to break it down, we know we can be saying that there are different kind of power. So, but in this particular topic that I want to talk about, I want to talk about two major power. I could talk about other power as well, but for this intended purpose, I intend to explain here. So there are two different form of powers, and we have house 10 and house 15. So house 10 kind of power is usually political. It doesn't has some level of spirituality in it. It doesn't have a good level of it could have spirituality, but it doesn't have a good level of spirituality in it. House 10 doesn't have a word. That doesn't mean that it lacks spirituality. No. It means that it is more of authority control. That is house 10. That doesn't mean that it's somebody that we could have somebody who is in power, who have spiritual authority, blah blah blah, like that. But for you to rule a government, for you to be in power, for you to be in house 10, you have to believe in political power more than spiritual power if you want to be in government. And that is what house 10 of geomancy chart is teaching us. You understand? Which is something that's common in our own African land. In Africa, even though there are people who do spiritual stuff, but we still believe in science, in common sense. Something that is not, because house 10 is what is reigning. I don't know how we might not, things might change tomorrow, but currently house 10 is what is reigning in Africa. You understand? Do you understand? So even in Europe as well, it's house 10. The reason why I said house 10 is what is reigning in Africa, what African is not, we're not supposed to be using house 10 as house of power in Africa. We are not supposed to be using house 10 as house of political power. We are rather supposed to be using house 30 as house of war, political power. Because African is king is based on king something, not on government or blah 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 like that. That is where we are supposed to be using as our house of power. But we are in Africa, we are following the Western trend. So that is why in Africa too, we all call our thing as house of power. But if you want to differentiate that, let's differentiate ourselves. Let's call a speed a speed. Let's know this is Africa. This is that is because geometry of Africa is different from geometry of Europe. But sometimes we intertwine them based on the way the situation is. Because now this is house, just like in the olden days, in more far in ancient days, in these current days, we call house seven house of wife, isn't it? But in olden days, this is not house of house seven, is not house of wife, it's house nine in ancient day. That is why there's this particular. Don't let me go too deep. House in the olden, but things have changed. We now attributed house seven as house of wife. Now, house three supposed in Africa, so because every countries have every location has their own difference, and the geometry recognizes our difference. But this modern teaching, modern something, we just say, we just geometry is geometry. That's why sometimes I tell people geometry is more than what you think, but at least since this is the way you understand, let's just like the way you teach a baby something, somebody who is under 18, the way you teach that person something is different from the way you teach somebody who is above 18. You understand? So if you say anybody say geometry, just know that this is how this person his own level of understanding. That's why some people say your geometry is something that has no ending. You understand? That is why, but that is not where we are going. So, but now, what I want to talk two major. I've said that I was waiting. I was 10 and I was waiting again. I was 15. You understand? The house theory that I mentioned is just a deviation for you to know that we have difference. So why? Sorry, I mentioned house theory. Why I was trying to differentiate house 10 as house of power. So anybody found in house 10, that doesn't mean the person doesn't believe in spirituality. Believe, but you have to take science much more better than even though the person is using spiritual something, but he will not let you. He is not permitted to let you know if you want to continue in power. Do you understand? But that is not even where we are going. That is just DVD. I'm just trying to make a difference between these house 10 and house 15, that they are both house of power. Well, house 15 is also house of power, but this house of power here, this house of power here has a lot to do with what spirituality. Clean spiritual, let me put it with clean spirituality. It has a lot to do with what clean spirituality. You have different spirit, but it is meant to be clean power. Clean what? Clean power. Just like I said in house 10, this house 10 is house of power. But he can do this house 10 can do spiritual something, but it will suppress spirituality over political power just for him to stay at that realm. And this one too can also, I was thinking, can also talk about spiritual something. That is the same thing that happened in house 15. It's also house of power, but it's house of what clean spiritualities. Doesn't mean that you cannot find negative or other thing in it, but it's more of clean. I hope you got the difference. Now